Hey guys, what is up? It is the Fast Break Report here, bringing you guys a little bit of a different video today. So I thought it would be fun to go through all 30 NBA teams and make a bit of a tier list about each team and where they are so far here at the midseason mark. We just passed the 42 game mark, and a lot of teams have, I think, in some way shocked the world. Some teams, I think, also have severely underperformed. There's a lot of teams on here that, we were just like, yeah, we knew they were going to do that. And then there's other teams that we were just like, they're performing better than we expected, but they were a team that like maybe we thought would be in the playoff race, but are just playing better than anticipated. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So the first one we have up here is the Milwaukee Bucks, and this one's a very easy one. They're performing as expected. I don't think anybody had the Milwaukee Bucks falling off a cliff this year. I think if I'm correct, I could be wrong, but I don't think I had the Bucks #1 in the East in my projections video for before the beginning of the year. I could be wrong about that, but they're still, like, I believe a top 3 seed in the East. So long as they have Giannis and, Jrue Holiday and stuff like that, like, they're always going to at least be a playoff team. But this is a team that, we expect them to be in the hunt for a championship, and they still are, you know what I'm saying? So that's the first one, is the Milwaukee Bucks here. They are performing as expected. Next, we have the Brooklyn Nets. I'm going to be honest, man. I'm putting them in shocking the NBA world. This is a team that when they started the year, they started off, if I'm correct, like 2-5 or something like that, with Steve Nash as their head coach. And even I was like getting worried. I'm like, bro, they've played 7 games and they've only won 2 of them. People were already kind of writing them off. As soon as the season started, and then they fired Steve Nash and brought in Jacque Vaughn, and their switching defense is doing wonders for them now. It finally looks like they've figured out how to utilize Ben Simmons, where maybe Steve Nash didn't know how to do that, which I find kind of hard to believe, because I saw it in preseason games how they were using him almost like a Draymond Green type of player. And it's working. Like, I'm going to call it what it is. Ben Simmons has kind of made it so the Brooklyn Nets can play almost like the Golden State Warriors, but of the East Coast, where they can have their power forward bring the ball up the court, and guys like Kyrie and KD can play off ball. They got Joe Harris shooting the shit out of the ball. I mean, like, they're playing very good basketball, man, and I don't think anybody expected them to be this good, especially after the James Harden trade and all the Ben Simmons stuff last year, and just everything that has happened this year. I don't think anybody expected them to be the #2 seed in the East, so this could always change, but for right now, they're shocking the NBA world. Next, we have the New York Knicks, and I'm going to put them in performing better than expected. I am a little upset of Wally Szczerbiak's comments about Tyrese Halliburton, but the Knicks are playing well, okay? I have to give it to Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. They are playing better this year than they did last year. They're currently in the playoff hunt. If I'm correct, I think they're a seed or 2 just above the Pacers. I mean, we're talking about a slim line of margin here that separates people in the East between anywhere from like the 6 through 9 seeds, essentially. Like, there's not a lot of games separating those teams. So the Knicks are performing better than expected, though. I still think Thibs doesn't know how to run an offense. I am going to put that out there. Right now, it just seems like, here, take the ball and do whatever the fuck you want. But it's working for him, so I can't really complain. So next year, we have performed worse than expected for the Toronto Raptors, because the Toronto Raptors are a team that I always expected to be in the playoff hunt, and it looks like they're falling off a cliff. I'm just going to call it what it is. I don't want to say they're severely underperformed, but they are definitely performing worse than expected. They're a team that is right now 19-24. They got a lot of guys on the final years of their deals. I think OG Anunoby and Fred VanVleet are 2 guys that are on the final years of their deals. They have a player option coming up, and I just feel like this is a team that, like, it's time to tear it down. They have Nick Nurse as their head coach, great defensive coach, but not exactly a genius when it comes to offense. He did manage to strike gold when they landed Kawhi Leonard, but now that there's no Kawhi Leonard there, their strategy has really been just get long and lanky wings and just tall players that are lanky and hope that gets them somewhere. It really hasn't held up this year. Granted, the East is absolutely, packed, but I expected them to play a little better than they are. And so for me, they're in worse than expected. Next is the Utah Jazz. This is a team that I don't know if I want to put them in shocking NBA world or perform better than expected, but I guess we'll put them in perform better than expected. They started off the year hot, man. I mean, like, they were a team that, like, people were just like, people expected them to be like one of the worst teams in basketball, especially after trading away Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. And they're just a team that has found themselves what appears to be a star in Lauri Markkanen, and they have managed to turn him into what looks like a 20-point per game scorer plus. And he's out here just doing his thing. They're playing decent team basketball. They're obviously in a rebuilding state. But I would say, like, they have enough picks to be in a rebuilding state, but I almost would say they're maybe in a retooling state more than a rebuilding state. Rebuilding is like they don't have anything, really, but they do have Jordan Clarkson. They do still have Mike Conley. Lauri Markkanen appears to be a great player, so who knows? Maybe it's just a matter of putting more pieces around Lauri Markkanen. I don't know for sure, but the Utah Jazz definitely performed better than expected because a lot of teams had them as like one of the worst teams in the NBA this year, so... yeah, Utah's performing better than expected. Next, we have the Houston Rockets. This team is performing as expected. I'm just going to call it what it is. Like, they're not a good team. Honestly, this is a team that I don't think is going to go as far as people seem to think. Alperen Sengun, I'm going to say this name wrong, but I think I got it right. Alperen Sengun has been very good for them. But so far, like, I don't know how good the fit is between Jalen Green, Kevin Porter Jr., and Jabari Smith Jr. They got 3 guys on their team that need the ball in their hands to really be effective, and I just don't know if that's going to work out long term. I really don't know what the Rockets' plan is here long term. Like, obviously Jalen Green I think is going to be a part of it, but I just don't know what direction this team can go in to really add another piece around Jalen Green to make it worthwhile. I think that other piece is Jabari Smith Jr. If I had to guess that anybody's going to get traded, it's Kevin Porter Jr. for something. I don't know what that something is. But they're a team that, they got draft assets. They have, their backcourt seems very crowded. So, I don't know what the outcome's going to be for them, but it's going to be interesting to see. Next is the New Orleans Pelicans, and I'm putting them up in here and performed better than expected. They're a team that I expected to be in the playoff hunt, and they are. I can't say I expected them to be like a top 3 seed in the West, though. Zion Williamson is finally playing like the guy that they drafted, and they have performed very well. Brandon Ingram is balling. I'm just going to call it what it is. Brandon Ingram is playing out of his mind. And they're a solid team, man. Like, we're finally seeing what New Orleans is going to be here for the next probably 2 or 3 years. They also have CJ McCollum, who is playing very well. Like, they just have a lot of guys on their team that can put the ball in the basket, and they're making it work. Dyson Daniels has been an incredibly underrated rookie for them. He is playing very, very well for them. I mean, he's, 6'7", 6'8", and plays point guard. I mean... they got rid of Lonzo Ball and managed to basically draft another one. So, yeah, you know what? Will Dyson Daniels be as good as Lonzo Ball? That remains to be seen, but so far he's playing very well. So, they're also a team I expect to maybe trade Jackson Hayes here at the trade deadline, only because he's not getting much burn. So, yeah, New Orleans Pelicans are definitely going in and perform better than expected. Los Angeles Lakers, performed worse than expected. I don't want to say they severely underperformed because Anthony Davis is now injured. LeBron is trying to backpack this team, but they're a team that's just like, when you have LeBron and AD, expectations are always high. Granted, they had a shitty season last year, but in the beginning of the year, I think people were like really clamoring that, they've had an entire offseason to work together. Maybe Russell Westbrook gets back into this. They hired Darvin Ham. They fired Frank Vogel. So like there was a lot of changes to this roster. They brought in Patrick Beverley. This was a team that people were kind of like, okay, they got Patrick Beverley now. Like they have somebody other than Westbrook playing point guard. And it has not worked. Like right now, they're relying on LeBron to get them into the playoffs, and Their record is negative. It's below 500. I expect it to continue to get worse so long as Anthony Davis is out. And, we'll have to wait and see. But for right now, they're performing worse than expected. You could put them almost in as performed as expected because of last season. But the Patrick Beverley trade, the hiring of a new head coach, I thought something here was going to change maybe. But I can't say I did, but I think a lot of other people did. And nothing has changed. So that's the Lakers. Next, we have the Chicago Bulls, and this is the first team going into the severely underperformed category. Listen, man, this is a team that needs to blow it up. I'm just going to call it what it is. DeMar DeRozan is, the only guy who seems to really be balling on any level over in Chicago. Lonzo Ball is out, which we can't blame them for because that's an injury thing, but Zach LaVine is playing like shit. Kobe White needs to go. They don't play defense. Like, they suck at defense. Like, this is a team that could really, really benefit from a coaching change. I think that's the first step you take. But the Bulls need a lot. Patrick Williams finally looks like a guy, like a decent player after all these years. After drafting him, Patrick Williams has been a bright spot for this team. Nikola Vucevic is, all offense, no defense. I'm just going to call it what it is. That's what I think about Nikola Vucevic, if you didn't know. But they're a team that has just severely underperformed. This is a team that, last year was one of the best teams in the East, and this year they're not even going to make the playoffs. So yeah, I got to put him in the severely underperformed category. Next is the Minnesota Timberwolves, and everybody knows where they're going. Severely underperformed. Listen, man, they gave up their entire 401k to get Rudy Gobert, and it has not panned out. This is a team that does not know how to play with him. They have a crowded front court now with Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert, and Rudy Gobert's just not good enough to get out of the paint. He's a good player. Like, they're in a real problem where, like, when Rudy Gobert's on the floor, they're a top 10 defense in the NBA. But when he's not on the floor, their offense significantly improves. This is a team that was like a great three-point shooting team last year. They're not jacking threes like they were last year, and it's because their spacing is just absolutely terrible. So yeah, Minnesota is a team that is severely underperformed this year. I look for them to improve next year, but I really don't know how much that's actually going to change. The only hope, I think, for Minnesota at this point is a head coaching change, and hopefully finding a head coach that can make this team of players work, because right now it's just it's not working at all. So yeah, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves there. Next is the Portland Trailblazers, and right now I gotta put them in performed as expected. They started out the year really hot, and then they kind of leveled off. Their defense has really fallen off a cliff. Shaedon Sharpe has proved me wrong. I'm happy about that, because he was a guy that I was really, really concerned about. He's a guy that, like, we all knew he had athletic ability. We all knew he could shoot, but the shot selection was a real question for him. The defense for me was the biggest question, and it appears as if Chauncey Billups, Nasir Little, other guys on that team who are at least know how to play defense or whatever, have really spoken to him and taught him some things. Shaedon Sharpe's been a bright spot. Jeremy Grant's been a very bright spot for them. Dame is playing on a Dame level, but they really, really suck at defense. I'm just gonna call it what it is. Like, they started off the year hot on defense, but once teams started getting into a rhythm, like, that was pretty much it. They're about giving up about as many points as they score. They're in the 20s when it comes to defensive rating, and just a team that I think they have the ability to be good, but they have a very small window to do it, especially with Damian Lillard and his contract and his age. They really got to try to make a lot of shit work in order to get this team to where they want to get it for Damian Lillard. So I don't know, man. That's the Portland Trailblazers. Next is the Denver Nuggets, and they're performing as expected. Nikola Jokic is currently working on his third straight NBA League MVP. I think he's going to get it. He's got a 62% chance right now of winning the award. The only guy behind him right now, I believe, is Luka Doncic, who I had winning. But they're playing phenomenal basketball. Jokic is having another MVP season. They have Jamal Murray back this year. Michael Porter Jr. is shooting pretty amazing statistically speaking. He's shooting like 47% from the field and 41% from three. 75% from the free throw line is not exactly what you would expect, but when you consider he's like the third option on that team, right now Aaron Gordon has made significant strides in shooting the three. Bones Highland has been Bones Highland. So yeah, this is a team that's just playing amazing basketball right now, and honestly, I think they're going to win it all this year. If I had to pick a team that's going to win the NBA title this year, I think it's going to be the Denver Nuggets. They're just playing basketball on another level compared to everyone else. KCP has been very good for them. I bet the Lakers are wishing they had him back. But yeah, the Nuggets are playing their asses off, and they're going to be a powerhouse come playoff time. Next is the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think we could put them in performed as expected. This is a team that, like, we knew they were going to get a high draft pick. They got Chet Holmgren, but then Chet Holmgren got injured, and that pretty much put all their expectations out the window. This is a team that I expected to perform maybe a little better than expected, but right now it's, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander over there against the world, and he has been playing on an all-star level. If SGA doesn't go to the all-star game, I'd be quite shocked, actually. But the Oklahoma City Thunder are a team that really needs to, they have a shit ton of assets, but they have a lot of guys that it's just, they have a bunch of really weird fits. Josh Giddey's been very good for them. So like they're a team that, like, yeah, they're kind of just performing as expected. They're not anybody that we expected to shock the world, but they're also not anybody that we expected, they're not a team that we expect to severely underperform after the off season they had, so that's what I think about OKC. Next is the Memphis Grizzlies. I'm going to be honest, this is a team that's performing better than expected right now. They are currently second in the West. This is a team that a lot of people, including myself, had as a team that could potentially fall out of the West. Only because a lot of people thought they were like the beneficiary of circumstance last year, where like a lot of teams had injuries. There was a lot of it just felt like they were kind of like they just snuck in a way, like they were a team that got in because of other circumstances, easy schedule, what have you, harder schedules for other teams, stuff like that. But they've really proved us wrong. Desmond Bane's playing out of his mind. John Morant is being John Morant as per usual. Jaren Jackson Jr. is finally back. He's playing very well. So, and this is a team that's loaded, man. Like, they have a lot of depth. Steven Adams is being traditional Steven Adams. So, yeah, you know what? This is a team that I think, I'm going to be honest, this is a team that I think we all knew had the potential to be a top seed in the West, but nobody was really going to put them there, mostly because of the teams that are in the West. And for them to be the number 2 seed right now, I got to be honest, they're shocking the world. I think they're a little fraudulent, to be honest with you. I think this is one of those teams that like could enter the playoffs as like a top 3 seed and then end up losing in like the first or second round. It's not often that happens, but they're a team that just like, they're a great regular season team, but when postseason time comes, I just don't know how good they're going to be. So there's that. Next here is the Dallas Mavericks. I gotta be honest, they're performing as expected. They're just a team that in very middle of the pack in the West. Luka Doncic is having a Luka Doncic season. He's had one of the greatest games ever in NBA history this year. They really need to get Luka Doncic a number 2. Right now, Christian Wood is a guy that they're reluctant to resign to whatever he wants. So yeah, Dallas is in the middle ground right now. They're just a team that is like, they're okay. They're not great. They're not horrible. That's where we expected them to be. Just a playoff team, and that's what they are. So. Next, we got the San Antonio Spurs. They're performing as expected. They started off the season very well. They were shocking the world in the start of the season, but now that we're here midway through, they've gotten back to where they're supposed to be. A bottom of the league team that's going to be tanking for Wemby. That's where they're going to be. Next is the Phoenix Suns. I'm going to put them in performed worse than expected, mostly because they've been riddled with injuries. Devin Booker's out right now. Cam Johnson has missed time. Cam Payne has missed time. And really, they're a team that has a really rough go of it here towards the second half of the season. Like, this entire month is really brutal for them. And they're just a team that, without Devin Booker, we're seeing just how bad this team really is. They're a team that it's like right now they're asking Chris Paul and DeAndre DeAndre Ayton to backpack them. DeAndre Ayton clearly doesn't even want to be there. So, you know, they're trying, but they're not exactly succeeding. And a lot of that has to do with Devin Booker not being there, but then it really makes you question. It's kind of like, if this is how bad this team is without Devin Booker, you know, I don't know how much hope is actually there. Same thing with the Mavericks, man. Like, if Luka Doncic didn't play for the Mavericks, like, they would be a team that's probably tanking for Wemby. So, yeah, I'm just going to say Phoenix, I don't expect this to get better either. I don't expect to be making an end-of-the-year video where Phoenix is, like, shocking the world. They're just, I don't think it's going to get any better for them. Next is the Los Angeles Clippers. They're performing, I think, as expected. You know, they got Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi finally came back. Kawhi is obviously not what he used to be, but the Clippers are a playoff team with or without Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard's the guy that really puts them over the top to be a championship contender, so I have to put them there. You know what I'm saying? They're a team that's performing as expected. They're a decent defensive team, decent offensive team. There's going to be some moves around the deadline, I feel, for this team. Like Reggie Jackson's a guy I could see getting traded. So, I don't know, man. They're a team that's just, they're right in the middle. Next is the Golden State Warriors. Severely underperformed. I'm just saying that now. This is the reigning NBA champs, and right now, they just only now finally are back into the playoff hunt. They are the 6th seed currently in the West. They're really, really bad at rebounding. I will say that. Their defense has kind of fallen off a cliff. They're not horrible, but they're not bad either. They're a very average team on defense anymore. Same thing with offense. Like, they're attempting the most threes in the NBA right now, and they're actually 7th in three-point percentage. But they're a team that's really missing, you know, like, I want to say, like, a big guy to rebound the basketball, and I get it, James Wiseman wasn't much help for that, but they're really missing a big man. They're really missing just, like, they turn the ball over a lot, too. Like, if they could just lock down on defense, stop turning the ball over, they would be, you know, like, performing as expected, but they're a team that's just not playing well right now. I'm not sure what the deal is, but Golden State is not playing up to expectations. Next is the Detroit Pistons. I'm going to put them in as performing worse than expected. Only because they're a team that, like, once they drafted Jaden Ivey and they also got Jalen Duren, a lot of people were like, okay, this is a team that could be a playoff team, and they're not even close to it. Granted, Cade Cunningham did get injured, and he's out for the entire season now. They did trade for Bojan Bogdanovic in the offseason, who is a guy that I expect them to trade here at the deadline. He's a guy they brought in as a vet to maybe try to help them this year, but being that Cade Cunningham is not there, it's just not going the way we expected. You know, I saw a lot of early predictions at the beginning of the year, preseason, where people had Detroit being maybe a play-in team in the East, and that's currently not going to happen. So they're performing worse than expected, but it's not really a shock to anybody too much. Like, they're performing worse than expected, but nobody is shocked that they're not making it. Let's put it that way. They were just a team that was very interesting, and I was like, yeah, you know what, they could maybe fuck around and make the play-in. Next is the Sacramento Kings. Boys, this is a team that is shocking the world. I'm going to call it right now. Sacramento Kings are shocking the world. This is a team that is currently ranked as the 2nd best offense in the NBA. They are balling. Okay, Malik Monk, Kevin Huerter, Sabonis is leading the league in rebounds. De'Aaron Fox is doing his thing. Like, this team is #1 in fast break points in the NBA. They brought in Mike Brown in the offseason as their head coach from the Golden State Warriors. He was an assistant on the Golden State Warriors. And let me tell you, I feel like the Warriors are missing him right now because he was their basically like their defensive coach. But he's in Sacramento right now, and they're balling. They're playing very well, and you know, this is just a team that it's like, I don't think anybody expected them to come out of left field and be a playoff contender, you know, and actually have like the #1 offense in the NBA, or not #1, but #2 offense in the NBA. They're balling. I'm gonna call it what it is, man. They're balling. Next is the Cleveland Cavaliers. They are performing as expected. Once they made the Donovan Mitchell trade, everybody was like, yeah, this is like the team that's going to really kick some ass, and they're doing that right now. Donovan Mitchell is averaging like 30 a game almost. I think it's like 28 or something like that. They have a loaded roster. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to be there. You know, there's not much else to say. Like, they're doing what we thought they would do, which is good. Next is the Boston Celtics. For me, I would put them in performing better than expected, but I can't disagree with popular sentiment, okay? They're performing as expected. I was wrong on this team. I was worried that Joe Mazzulla would come in and fuck everything up and implement his own shit. He has not done that, okay? The Celtics are a team that is balling right now. Jason Tatum is in the MVP conversation. They're playing defense. They're doing their thing like they did last year, so they're performing as expected. As you know, like I said, not much to say. Next is the 76ers. They're performing worse than expected. We're hearing, rumors now that James Harden wants to go back to Houston. They've had some injuries and stuff like that. I think James Harden was even injured in the beginning of the season or something like that. They're just a team that it's like, they don't really shock anybody, but we expected them to be a playoff team in the East, but I think a lot of people had them a lot higher than where they are now. The first game we ever saw of James Harden and Joel Embiid playing together, we were like, this duo is going to be fucking crazy, and now it's just kind of like blah, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, okay, if they make it, they make it. If they don't, they don't. I feel like a lot of people have really calmed down a lot on the Philadelphia 76ers because it's just pretty obvious at this point that's like, they have a decent roster. They added some depth, but they're still not a contender. Even with James Harden and Joel Embiid's balling his ass off, but they're not a team that's really shocking anybody at the moment. Next is the Charlotte Hornets, and they're performing as expected. LaMelo Ball was injured. He just finally came back. They're not a team we really expected to do anything significant, so they're performing as expected. Next is the Washington Wizards. I hate to say this, but they are performing as expected. This is another team that they signed Bradley Beal to probably the worst contract in NBA history because they paid him an ass ton of money, gave him a no-trade clause, and they're not performing up to that now. I feel like they made promises to Bradley Beal that they're not going to be able to keep. There was maybe a few people that were like, okay, Washington might be a play-in team. No, they're not even a playoff team. So long as they have Bradley Beal on that contract, they are not going to be a playoff team unless they trade Kyle Kuzma and trade a couple other guys for some young prodigy or something like that, which I don't think is going to happen. Kyle Kuzma is already, it sounds like they're trying to trade him. So this is a team I actually expect to tear it down come the trade deadline. I feel like the Washington's going to be put in a situation where they have to talk to Bradley Beal and kind of convince him that, it's time to move on. I feel like that's where Washington is at currently, and they're just a team that I have no faith in. I'm just going to say that. The Orlando Magic, they're performing as expected. Paolo Banchero is in talks to be Rookie of the Year. He probably will be the Rookie of the Year. He's balling his ass off. They clearly made the right pick in the NBA draft. I had them taking Jabari Smith Jr., but they took Paolo Banchero to shock the world. Right before the draft started, the rumors came out about it, and obviously they made the right pick because Paolo Banchero is playing a hell of a lot better than Jabari Smith Jr. is at the moment, so yeah, Orlando's performing as expected. Next, we have the Miami Heat. They are performing worse than expected. I don't know what happened with this team. They underwent a lot of injuries. They're a team that is just playing very middle of the pack right now. I think they're still they're just outside of the playoff picture. They're on that the crust of being a playoff team and a play-in team. But, yeah, they're a team that they really need some point guard play. Kyle Lowry is the oldest player on that team, and he's playing the most minutes. They really need to try and trade Kyle Lowry for something. His contract's not good for them. They really need to move a lot of pieces to add some depth. Duncan Robinson's contract has been fucking horrendous for them as well. Bam Adebayo playing pretty well this year. Jimmy Butler's still playing decent. Tyler Herro's being Tyler Herro. Getting Victor Oladipo back was pretty huge for them. But this is a team that, after being one of the top teams in the East last year, for them to fall this far, I have to put them in performed worse than expected. Next is the Atlanta Hawks. They're performing worse than expected. Listen, man, they're another team. They made this huge trade to get DeJounte Murray, and now everybody's like, oh, they're going to be a playoff team. They're going to contend. And that has not been the case. Trae Young has been fucking abysmal for them this year. I'm just going to call it what it is. He hasn't just been bad. He has been fucking abysmal for them this year. And, they're a team that I just think, they need more. They're trying to trade John Collins. They have so much shit going on, and it seems also I get a vibe that the locker room doesn't like Trae Young. You know what I'm saying? I get that now. You know, there's supposedly a rift between Trae Young and Nate McMillan as the head coach, and I don't know. This team needs a lot of work before they contend for anything. So right now, performed worse than expected, especially after that giant trade they made in the offseason. Lastly is the Indiana Pacers, and I got to put them in... I almost want to put them in shocking the NBA world. But, yeah, I guess I could put them there. I want to put them in performed better than expected, but they were the team that was going to supposedly have the worst record in the NBA, and they're in the playoff picture. Tyrese Halliburton is in contention for Most Improved Player of the Year. Benedict Mathurin is in the conversation for Rookie of the Year and Sixth Man of the Year. Buddy Hield is leading the league in three-pointers made and three-point percentage, if I'm correct. Tyrese Halliburton is leading the league in assists per game. Miles Turner is leading the league in blocks per game. Like, I just gotta call it what it is, man. Like, even though it feels biased because I'm a Pacers fan, they're shocking the NBA world. Like, they were a team that everybody projected to only win 27 games, and I promise you, they are going to win more than 27 games. Tanking for Victor Wembanyama is officially out of the conversation for them, which annoys me as a Pacers fan because this is a team that I just wish would fucking tank just one season because, you know, as a fan, I'm willing to give up one season if it means being in the playoffs for the next 10 to 15 years potentially, but it's just the idea that, you know what, they don't like to rebuild. They like to reload. You know, even though they're not the fucking San Antonio Spurs, they like to do this. But it's worked. I just got to call it what it is. It has worked for them this year. So it's going to be what it's going to be. Miles could get traded. Buddy Hield could get traded. I don't think they're going to trade Buddy, but I definitely think at this point it's leaning towards they're going to trade Miles Turner, especially after the contract talks have not been going the way Miles has wanted. So, yeah. That's where we're at. So tell me what you guys think about this list down below in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on this. Like, helps me out, subscribe if you guys want to see more. I'm the Fast Break Report, and I'm out of this motherfucker. Peace, guys.